رمضان أقبل بعد طول غيابي ففرحت فيه مهنئا أحبابي خير الشهور به النفوس تعلقت واستسلمت للخالق الوهاب.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And we are on Ramadan Recital Reminder number 10. And we were part way through Surah Al-Anfal. Anfal meaning referring to the spoils of war. So clearly this verses or this para in particular is going to focus on the rules of jihad and what can be collected and not from there. And we find also within this para one of the sternest messages from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aimed particularly at those who show enmity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and those who show enmity to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is referred to as Surah At-Tawbah, in which is the only surah out of the all 114 in which it does not have the basmala there, which you can see. So we will work our way through that inshallah ta'ala, but let's pick up where we discussed yesterday, which was وَعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا غَنِمْتُمْ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فَأَنَّ لِلَّهِ خُمُسَهُ وَلِلرَّسُولِ وَلِذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ إِن كُنتُمْ آمَنْتُمْ بِاللَّهِ وَمَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَى عَبْدِنَا يَوْمَ الْفُرْقَانِ يَوْمَ الْتَقَى الْجَمْعَانِ. So know that when you are in battle and you take the rules of battle used to be years gone by, and it's not too different nowadays, is that when the enemy would meet on a battlefield, now because of the widespread populated areas, there is hardly any area which is not populated. So it's very difficult now to fight a war out in a battlefield. Before you could do that because the towns and the cities and the villages were very small, and there was only in certain areas where people used to live, so you could quite easily make your way across to the fields and open area and fight. Now that's not the case anymore. Now with planes and which can with weapons which can be fired from a distance away, cities are targeted, and this is against the Sharia to actually target a city. The fight should be a fair fight. It should be out in the open, away from children, away from women, away from people who don't want to fight, away from people who are too ill to fight, away from people who are too old to fight, away from the religious people who are happy to continue to stay within their churches, synagogues and masjids. That's how it's supposed to be. But wars got a little bit trickier after the Second World War, and it's very much now fought in any area, in any locality, and war has dropped to very low levels where you now start to see the use of indiscriminate weapons. And indiscriminate weapons has always been a problem within the Sharia, and the Sharia has found it very difficult to facilitate and permit indiscriminate weapons, whether that was I've got the word for it now. Oh goodness, I'm having vocabulary problems. The thing that you used to have where the weight or the item was placed within the like a spoon, and it used to sort of torpedo the item across. And this was discussed because A, it was the use of fire, and B, because of its indiscriminate use. And the ulama, when they spoke regarding these type of weapons, because of the indiscriminate nature, they found it very hard to permit them. It's only because when the enemy started to use them, then it only permitted them on the case that the enemy is using them, so we are also permitted to use them. Now you would find also torpedoes and bombs and things of that nature would also come under that criteria, because if a person fires a weapon off, then there are going to be people who are killed, and now sadly those people who are killed are referred to as collateral damage, when in reality indiscriminate weapons are killing innocent people who have nothing to do with the war, people who may stand against the war, who may not want to be involved in the war whatsoever, children, women, and I've given you the list already. But because of the indiscriminate nature of war now, because wars are easily lost when the public's taste for war goes, and that usually happens when the soldiers are coming back in body bags and coffins are returning back to the country which has sent their soldiers out. And after a while, the people just don't like the war anymore. So once the government is realizing that it's losing public support for a war, which obviously requires the children, their children, and the adults to be sent to war, then the war is lost when the people can't stomach the war. So that's why to reduce the number of deaths to soldiers, in order to be that's not because they want to be the powers that be want to be nice to soldiers. No, soldiers have been dying for generals and politicians for centuries, and they will continue to die for generals and politicians for centuries. It's about greed, it's about power, it's about getting to resources which other people have, and this is the nature of war. So it's not that suddenly they've grown, these politicians have grown a conscience and they're thinking, we don't want soldiers to die. That's a bit late now for this type of level of conscience to develop. It's a case of we don't want to stop this war. We don't want to stop fighting this war until we achieve the objectives of the war. And if we start to see soldiers being returned back in coffins, and if we start to see soldiers returned back in body bags, then the public are going to lose the support for carrying on with this war, and we'd eventually have to stop. So for that, you need to be able to reduce or minimize the soldiers, or as it's referred to as boots on the ground, and that's usually done then by firing weapons either from planes which are so high up in the sky that they cannot be targeted, especially if the enemy does not have a developed air force, or it's to fire weapons from ships, again if the enemy does not have a developed a navy or submarines, and fire them from a distance. So even nowadays, to use drones for targeted attacks, or to fire weapons from distances which can cover long distances, ballistic missiles which can cover long distances. They are less accurate, but this is now this nice word that people use to meaning killing innocent people, which is called collateral damage. That is called killing. That is killing innocent people. It's just another word for it, collateral damage. I guess if those who are labelled as terrorists said, "Oh, our aim was not to kill those people. Our aim was political, and this was just collateral damage," we wouldn't be comfortable with those words. We would say, "Sorry, this is indiscriminate killing." What indiscriminate killing is indiscriminate killing, and we've got to say what it is. Now, Islam has always stood against indiscriminate killing. It's always suggested that people go out away, the soldiers go out away from all civilized areas so people aren't attacked, children are not attacked, animals are not killed, trees are not destroyed. So it's just those people who want to fight, and that's usually the relatively young men, and they fight because that's what they want to do. And when the fight is over, then that's it, it's over. Nobody else has got damaged, nobody else has got killed, because these individuals chose to fight. Whereas, again, I'm just using the word because that's how it's understood. Collateral damage means that people we didn't want to kill, and people who didn't want to be killed, and people who didn't want to fight, and people who we didn't want to fight with, we've killed. Because we're using a weapon in order to save our people. Well, if you go to war, then you have to have the stomach for war. And if you do not have the stomach for war, then you should not go to war. War is not a game. War involves the loss of life. And once you start valuing the loss of life, we don't really value the loss of life. We only start to value the loss of life when it occurs on the other side, on our side. So if other people, other communities, or other races, or other nationalities are dying, then we don't really care. You'll see that. I'm in Britain. I'm a British citizen. So there's just been a killing recently, but because it's a British citizen, it's being made a big issue of, because I should care more because this person shares citizenship with me. Now, I'm a global citizen. I feel the same sadness that if an Egyptian or a Syrian or Ethiopian or an Australian, whatever their nationality happens to be, because that's really what it is, whatever their nationality happens to be, the fact that this person's life was taken without just cause. Why was this person's life taken? As I said, the news that's just come through is about a person who's got stabbed on a bus and killed. Well, this person wasn't allowed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give permission for this person's life to be taken, and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give permission for life to be taken. So this is wrong. So it happens to be a British citizen. Well, it's wrong irrespective of what type of citizen it is. So you've got to understand how the Sharia tries to prevent this type of war that's happening. However, as I said, post-World War II, it's a different world we live in. There are lots of warmongers, there are lots of people who are hungry for blood, hungry for resources, and hungry for destruction, and want to spread their value system and want to spread their power base as far and wide as possible. And if that means scaring people into submission, if that means destroying the infrastructure of countries or destroying the hierarchy of countries, then so be it. And in order to be able to pursue those goals, they would like the public's support. So therefore, the less soldiers that die of this particular nation, the less people that get killed, then the public will continue to support, because we only care if it's one of our citizens. Because we're nationally based. We don't care if it's somebody else, because they're a nobody to us. Even though this particular British citizens are nobody to us, but because they share something with us, we feel as though that's a personal attack. That's an attack on us. So we're ready to defend that particular person because of their citizenship. So we need to understand really about the structure of war. So as we see now on the streets, and those things which are labeled as terrorist acts, where people are driving cars into people or blowing themselves up on buses or laying mines or bombs in civilized public areas, this is a perversion, a perverse manifestation of the kind of global war we live in, a global world war we live in. Even though we haven't declared it as World War III, we are living in times which is quite unique in the fact that there's killing going on, as high levels of killing, when arguably the wars should have stopped, and that was the aim of the United Nations or the world of nations, in order to stop these wars. But instead they've just carried on, and there's more and more people getting killed. But I guess there's less Europeans getting killed, who were the real driving force behind the United Nations, because of the World War II, which killed so many Europeans. Whereas the death now is just, it's like when a person has a problem with rats, then all he does is, he kind of closes off the holes or clears whatever, and as long as the rats move on to somebody else's property, he doesn't care. He doesn't eliminate the problem, he just moves the problem on to somewhere else. So in the same way, the Europeans were fed up of killing each other and thought, well, we're not going to do this again. Okay, so then NATO comes in, UN comes in, whatever. So what they did was they said, right, let's move this problem on to somewhere else. So now we see in the Middle East and Asia the same killing which was going on in Europe maybe a century or two ago, until obviously stability is reached there, if that was ever achieved. So I want to, that little kind of disclaimer, that little 10-15 minute introduction, or as a context for what we're speaking about, is very important, because there are many verses which do speak of war, which is called within the Arabic term jihad, and it's mentioned across in many areas, this concept of jihad and this concept of war. And it's now we see this perverse manifestation of it, and we see and that people want to associate this act with this act and say, look, jihad is an indiscriminate killing of individuals, whatever. No. Jihad is a gentleman's battle. It's an absolute gentleman's battle. You can't fight in civilized areas. You can't fight, you got to go out into the open. Apart from obviously if the enemy takes protection behind a fort of some sort or behind a castle and are still in a position in the offensive, but no, and these particular group of people, say, or this community that's taking up protection in a castle or in a fort, have actually attacked you before. And now, now that you've turned to ready to wage war, they've sort of scarpered and decided to, pull up the drawbridge, quite literally, and hide in the castles or forts and wait, because they've got plenty of food, and just play a waiting game with the army and say, well, sooner or later they're going to get fed up, they're going to miss their families, they've come from a long way, we're going to have to just, they'll disappear soon, the food will run out, the water will run out, illness will spread across in the camp, we can fire things at them, and eventually they'll lose heart and they'll disappear. And if that's what the enemy, if that's what the army that's camped around this particular castle did do, then they would just wait, strengthen, and attack that again, and then they would come back and they quickly lock. So it'd be like playing, Tig, and and you got like, what is it, off the ground ballo or something it used to be called. What was it called back in the day when we were kids? So it's like that person, so you just occupy yourself with something that comes behind you, slaps you, so when you quickly turn around again, he's running, he's back on ballo, so you can't touch me, I'm on ballo. I'm not Mumbalo, I am on ballo. And then when you sort of stand there for ages thinking he's gonna slip, and he doesn't slip. You go, I'm gonna play anyway, and he just wander off and sit back down. Then he creeps up behind you and slaps you again. So it can be very frustrating. Now this is just a tiny slap on the back of the neck, but if this army that was now protecting itself in this fort was continuously doing that, then this poor community would never be able to live, because they will always have the fear that sooner or later they're going to come out of their fort and castle, attack us, steal some of our sheep and whatever, and then disappear. And then when we go, if we just leave them, then it's not going to happen. So there are exceptions. There are exceptions where armies can attack, I want to say communities, but can attack strongholds, forts, castles, where they know there's an army there that's waiting and that has already caused problems in the past. Otherwise, the Sharia will always say that two armies go out there, fight, settle their differences, because a war is one of those, as the term is used, necessary evil. It's not something that people enjoy. It's not something which is a khafud the rain, as the term would be used. It's not something which people kind of live up to and become their sort of aim and ambition in life is to go killing people. That's not really what the ambition is, because that's something which comes about. The aim really is ensuring the practice of Islam, and it's on that where this particular verse that I've had this 20-minute introduction to mentions, obviously, with respect to the separation and the sharing of any war booty, any spoils of war. And it mentions, in kuntum amantum billahi wa ma anzalna ala abdina yawm al-furqan. Now yawm al-furqan is the day of criterion, a criteria, faraq, which separates two groups. Now up until then there'd be no real defining point where the Muslims in Medina could be differentiated by the mushriks in Mecca. There was no really deciding point. There was a little bit argy-bargy, not getting on. There was nothing really which drew a distinction between the two. Some were still, other Arab tribes still thought them as a loose link still to the Meccans. They're just fallen out over something. So they didn't see them any different. Quraysh, and they're just fallen out over something. The Muhajirun were obviously the Quraysh, and they'll get back together, whatever. It was only at this particular point, this Yawm al-Furqan, Yawm al-Taqal Jama'an, when these two parties met. Now the way these two parties met is neither actually intended to fight. وَإِذْ أَنْتُمْ بِالْعُدْوَةِ, when you were at the side of the valley, the near side, ad-dunya, near side of the valley, and they were بِالْعُدْوَةِ الْقُصْوَى, they were at the far side of the valley. وَالرَّكْبُ أَسْفَلَ مِنْكُمْ, and the caravan was traveling from beneath you. وَلَوْ تَوَاعَدْتُمْ لَاخْتَلَفْتُمْ فِي الْمِيعَادِ, and if you two had promised to meet on this day for battle, then you would have certainly have failed to actually meet your meeting point on your meeting day, because one of your parties would have backed out. وَلَكِنْ لِيَقْضِيَ اللَّهُ أَمْرًا كَانَ مَفْعُولًا. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted a particular act to happen. For that to happen, there had to be reason for both you parties to be there. لِيَهْلِكَ مَنْ هَلَكَ عَنْ بَيِّنَةٍ, to destroy those we destroyed clearly, وَيَحْيَى, and to give life or to allow to live, مَنْ حَيَّ عَنْ بَيِّنَةٍ. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَسَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ, and indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all hearing and all knowledgeable. إِذْ يُرِيكَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي مَنَامِكَ قَلِيلًا, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed you in your dream that the enemy was few. وَلَوْ أَرَاكَهُمْ كَثِيرًا, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed that the enemy was great in number, لَفَشِلْتُمْ, and you people would have been discouraged, you would have been put off. وَلَتَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ, and you would have not gone ahead with this. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ سَلَّمَ إِنَّهُ عَلِيمٌ بِذَاتِ الصُّدُورِ. So here we have the Muslims were going out to attack the caravan. They had no intention to go into battle. So they're going to go to attack the caravan. The mushriks from Makkah were going to go defend the caravan. Not go to war, just defend the caravan. But it so happened the caravan slips by and these two parties meet and the battle ensues. Then likewise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that if I'd shown them huge in number in front of you, you would never have gone ahead. But I made them look small to you in number so that this would give you courage. Because as I said, we always see things worldly. If we saw things, if we psychologically lose things. We don't lose things in reality. In reality, if we gave the same, you see it. I give a lot of football analogy to my male students in particular, and I say, can you imagine if there's a team that's won like 10 games in a row, 12 games in a row, and then they lose a game and they lose really badly, and then you see then for the next 10, 15 games they can't win. So you think, how can that be possible? It's the same team, it's the same players. and they're playing in the same way. Well, strategically they're playing in the same way. Why is it they can't win? Because when you lose heart, when you lose confidence in the mind, then you just can't get it right. So it's about the state of mind, making sure the state of mind is in the right place to be able to achieve those tasks. وَإِذْ يُرِيكُمُوهُمْ, and when we showed them to you, إِذِ الْتَقَيْتُمْ فِي أَعْيُنِكُمْ قَلِيلًا وَيُقَلِّلُكُمْ فِي أَعْيُنِهِمْ لِيَقْضِيَ اللَّهُ أَمْرًا كَانَ مَفْعُولًا. And when you saw them, when you met them, in your eyes they looked small in number, and when they looked at you, and you were shown in their eyes small in number. So they thought, oh, there's not that many of them, we'll squash them. And the Muslims looked at the mushrikeen and said, oh, there's not that many, we should be able to handle these people. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had His own plans. His own plan was that these two parties will meet. This will send a strong message out to the rest of the Arab world, because what it did was it achieved literally the impossible. It was miraculous in the way 313 individuals, ill-prepared, ill-equipped, went to battle against 1,000 strong soldiers, warriors, that were mounted, and won. And they won the day. And that sent alarm bells, because up until now nobody had really tested Quraysh's strength. They had respected Quraysh because of their historical position amongst the Arabs. But this was the first time that the Quraysh, the proud and highly respected Quraysh, had their noses smited, had their faces dragged in dust. And that, not by a greater opponent or a stronger opponent, that by a weaker opponent, and also the opponent was from them. So this sent huge alarm bells around. وَإِلَى اللَّهِ تُرْجَعُ الْأُمُورِ, and all matters return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He has this way where He puts things into place. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا لقيتم فئة فاثبتوا فاذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. Oh, those of you who believe, when you meet a group, an army, an enemy, then stay steadfast and remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly, because it's through His remembrance that you will become successful, in order that you be successful. وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ, and obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and obey His messenger. وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا, and don't disagree with one another, don't fall into disputes and arguments. فَتَفْشَلُوا, otherwise you will lose courage. وَتَذْهَبُ رِيحُكُمْ, and you will lose that wind in your sails, as the phrase goes. You will lose your heart. وَاصْبِرُوا, be patient. So you're seeing this mentioned quite clearly, that one has to be strength, and one has to work together, and to not fall into dispute or arguments. And we have a habit where we're just so busy picking at each other's faults. Here we are as a minority in Britain, and rather than supporting each other, as soon as we see somebody doing something which we don't agree with, even though we don't know the full facts, we're jumping up and down, making things public, putting stuff into the media, especially the social media, making such a big scene, and we aren't even cared to find out what's actually going on. And sadly, this is becoming part and parcel of our community. Inna Allah ma'as sabirin, indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with those who are patient. وَإِذْ زَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُمْ, when Shaitan beautified for them their acts. وَقَالَ, and he said to them, لَا غَالِبَ لَكُمُ الْيَوْمِ مِنَ النَّاسِ, no one's going to beat you today. You are this, you are that, you are great warriors, you are great fighters. وَإِنِّي جَارٌ لَكُمْ, and I'm with you as well. فَلَمَّا تَرَاءَتِ الْفِئَتَانِ, so when he saw the two groups meeting, نَكَسَ عَلَى عَقِبَيْهِ, he ran off. Okay, and he said, وَقَالَ إِنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّنكُمْ, I'm free from what you people are doing. إِنِّي أَرَى مَا لَا تَرَوْنَ, I can see what you people can't see. إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهَ, and indeed I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I've just used my manipulation to get you here. You are actually going to war against a prophet, and I would never dream of going to war against a prophet myself. So I'm going to leave you now, and I'm going to depart. And when you see that, you see Shaitan himself very rarely gets involved in these activities. He whispers them in our ear, and we do these activities. And that's what Shaitan will do on the Day of Judgment. On the Day of Judgment, he'll say, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I never did anything. All I did was whisper stuff into their ears, and it was stuff that they already wanted to hear. I only told them, Ya Allah, what they wanted to hear. They wanted to hear this, so when they had an opportunity to take something which didn't belong to them, all I said to them was, but they were already thinking it. Then why do you take it? And they took it. So I didn't sow any seeds, it was always there. I just fanned the flames of desire. I just fanned the flames of their corrupted state. I never actually did anything myself. Exactly the point here. I'm with you. What you guys are doing is a good thing. All this talk, all this bravado. Soon as it comes to when the two groups are meeting, you can see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's nusrat, help, is with the Muslims. You can see there's a Nabi there. You can see that the angels are there in support of the Muslims in Badr. So he knows that I'm actually going to war against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to war against his chosen prophet. And he knew that is absolutely wrong, because inni akhafullah, I fear Allah. So that's when he disappeared. So he didn't actually lift a single arrow, fire a single arrow, throw a single stone or a spear. The others did, and then wallahu shadidul iqab, they faced the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here we see كَدَعْبِ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ, like the behavior, similar behavior to the people of Fir'aun. وَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ, those who came before them, كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ, they disbelieved in the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَأَخَذَهُمُ اللَّهُ بِذُنُوبِهِمْ, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took them to task because of their sins. إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَوِيٌّ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ, indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is strong and is most severe in his punishment. ذَلِكَ, that is بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ, because indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala لَمْ يَكُمْ مُغَيِّرًا, he does not take away a ni'mah, a favor, a gift he has given to somebody, أَنْعَمَهَا عَلَىٰ قَوْمٍ, upon a people, حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ, until they change themselves. وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ, and indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all hearing and all knowledgeable. We see this so many times, that when our halat is in difficulty, then he does not remove that halat from us until we change ourselves. And likewise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will gift us with ni'mah, and he will only stop his ni'mah when we ourselves change. And this is one thing we have to be ready. So the change, everything that happens to us is happening because of our own state. So our own state needs to improve. We improve our state, and you will see how that will change. Inna sharra ad-dawabi inda Allahi alladhina kafaru fahum la yu'minun. Indeed, the evil of the individuals, according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who disbelieve and then they do not believe. Alladhina ahadta minhum thumma yanquduna ahadahum fi kulli maratin في كل مرة وهم لا يتقون, and those who we have made a promise with them, and then they break these promises, they break these covenants in every time, and they have no taqwa, they have no care at all. وَعِدُّوا لَهُمْ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ وَمِن رِبَاطِ الْخَيْلِ تُرْهِبُونَ بِهِ عَدُوَّ اللَّهِ وَعَدُوَّكُمْ وَآخَرِينَ مِن دُونِهِمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَهُمْ اللَّهُ يَعْلَمُهُمْ وَمَا تُنْفِقُوا مِن شَيْءٍ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ يُوَفَّى إِلَيْكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تُظْلَمُونَ. So again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recommends and encourages the Muslims to be well prepared for this battle that they faced, and any battle that they will face in the future, when those who are targeting their faith, targeting their religion, and trying to annihilate their religion. وَإِن جَنَحُوا لِلسَّلْمِ فاجنح لها وتوكل الله إنه هو السميع العليم وإن يريدوا أن يخدعوك فإن حسبك الله, and if they intend that they deceive you, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for you. هو الذي أيدك بنصره, he is the one who assisted you with his help. وبالمؤمنين, and also the believers. وألف بين قلوبهم, and he joined between their hearts. لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بين قلوبهم, and even if you were to spend everything which is on the earth, you would not have been able to bring their hearts and win their hearts over. ولكن الله ألف بينهم, but indeed it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who joins their hearts. إنه عزيز حكيم, indeed he is Aziz and he is Hakim. Ya ayyuhan nabi hasbukallah wa man ittaba'aka minal mu'minin. O Nabi, O Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for you and those who follow you from the believers. So this is important, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is encouraging the Prophet because the Prophet was not a man of war. This was not his nature. He was not a man. He wouldn't harm anything. He did not harm any woman. He did not harm any child. He did not harm any animal. He would take pity and feel very bad when animals were mistreated, whether that was when people would sit on camels for too long whilst talking. Then he would say it is better that you dismount, take the load off the camels and then talk. Don't talk whilst you're sat on the animals. You see him when he sees a creature, an animal which hasn't been fed very well, so he calls out to the person who's looking after him saying, look, you're mistreating your animals. So you see him many times. Once when somebody took the babies away from a bird, a Sahabi took the babies away from the bird, so the bird was playing up, so the Prophet ﷺ told him to return those little chicks back because it was disturbing the the bird. So you can see, if Rasulullah had so much care for birds and things, how could he take a person's life? How could he actually go into war? So that's why the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba had to be encouraged to go into war by Allah SWT, because he says it's not, what you're doing is not wrong. What you're doing is not wrong, but by you not doing anything is wrong. It's a difficult decision when trouble happens when the good men stay quiet. Time is bad when the good men are not speaking up. The good men have to always speak up. The good men have to always make these difficult decisions of standing and going and fighting and going to war, even though they do not want to go to war, even though every single iota and every single atom in their body is not wanting to go to war. But for the reason of this particular act, he was encouraged to do so, to go there. And then he was told, Ya ayyuhan Nabi, haridil mu'minina ala al-qital. Oh Nabi, you will also have to urge and encourage the believers as well, because they're also naturally in a peaceful state. They naturally care for everybody and everything around them. They will not want to go into in a situation where A, they're putting themselves at risk, and B, they're putting other people's lives at risk. They will not do it. But you are left with no choice if you do not stand up to the enemy. In this case, the Makkans that were coming from Quraysh. If you do not stand up to the enemy, then the enemy will destroy you. They will attack you. They will kill you, because they do not like you for the way of life you have chosen. You have chosen the way of life where you've stood against their polytheistic beliefs, and you are now pushing monotheistic beliefs. And they have hatred towards you for that. They have jealousy towards you for that. You're taking away their food source, their power source. They have no care for the people. The people for them are just pawns in a game. For them, it doesn't mean anything to them. What they're losing is their position of power and their position of authority. So you will have to, O Prophet of Allah, pick up arms. You have no choice. You will have to encourage the believers. They will also have to pick up arms, even though they do not want to do that. They want to pray. They want to fast. They want to make pilgrimage. They don't want to do things like this. They want to support their wives. They want to raise their young. They want to help the poor, help the weak. They want to protect the orphan. They want to protect the widow. These are the things they want to do. But in order to be able to do those things, to be able to live according to those values, to be able to live that life, they will have to stand up and defend that way of life. And if that means raising a sword and raising a shield, then that's what they will have to do. So again, you'll see again throughout this surah and the next, time and time again, the Prophet ﷺ is being told to encourage and go to battle, and it's been explained to him that don't worry, don't fear, don't look at your numbers. Your numbers is not what you should be so concerned about. What you should be more concerned about is being prepared for battle. So encourage yourself, encourage those around you, and do what you've got to do. إن الذين آمنوا وهاجروا وجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم في سبيل الله والذين آووا ونصروا أولئك بعضهم أولياء بعض والذين آمنوا ولم يهاجروا ما لكم من ولايتهم من شيء حتى يهاجروا وإن استنصروكم في الدين فعليكم النصر إلا على قوم بينكم وبينهم ميثاق والله بما تعملون بصير. Indeed, as for those people who believe and those who have emigrated and those who do fight with their wealth and themselves in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those who give refuge, those who give asylum, and those who help, they are associates and friends of one another. وَالَّذِينَ, as for those people who believe but they've not emigrated, مَالَكُمْ, then you do not have a duty of protection over them, because they've chose to stay as a minority in whichever lands they've chose to stay. So you have no duty of protection. مِنْ شَيْءٍ حَتَّى يُهَاجِرُوا, until they emigrate, then you have a duty of protection. وَإِنِ اسْتَنْصَرُوكُمْ, if they ask you for help, Fiddin, again, it's very important. Look at this verse. وَإِنِ اسْتَنْصَرُوكُمْ فِدِّينِ, if they ask you for help with a religious matter, meaning that they're being persecuted and attacked because of their religion. They're not being attacked, this small community, because of the water resource, or because of oil, or because of some other thing. They're being attacked because of their religion, because of their practice of their faith. They're being persecuted. But for alaykum, then you should stand up and assist them, because you are one ummah. However, illa, except ala qawmin, against a people, bainakum wa bainahum mithaq, that between you and them there is a treaty of mutual alliance. You cannot now go to war. Why? Because so let's just say there's a particular country that's persecuting a minority group of Muslims, and these minority group of Muslims write to this Muslim country and say, look, we're being attacked, we're being persecuted because of our faith, nothing else. We've not done anything wrong. It's our faith that's being targeted. Then this country would have to offer support to its co-religionists and take matters up with the host country. But if the host country and this Muslim country have a peace agreement, a mutual agreement that we will not attack each other for the next 10 years, or we will be at peace for 20 years or 50 years, or until there's reason to discuss that, now this Muslim country can't support the persecuted minority. It can still use its influence on the host country and say, look guys, why are you persecuting this minority for? They're Muslims, we're Muslims, we have a fantastic agreement in place, we have good trade, bilateral trade, we have this, we have that, we exchange ideas, we exchange technology, why are you doing this? And then they use their influence to influence the host country to take different steps towards this minority Muslim. But they can't go to war for them. Because Muslims don't break their treaties, they don't break their agreements. Wallahu bima ta'maluna basir. وَالَّذِينَ كَفْرُوا بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ إِلَّا تَفْعَلُوهُ تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. So again, much talk again about this, the Muslims and their help and association. And then we reach to Surah At-Tawbah. Now Surah At-Tawbah is a unique surah, as I've already mentioned during its introduction, that out of all the 140 surahs, it is the only one that has no basmala. Why? Because the message in here is pretty harsh, it is pretty stern, it is the sternest, harshest surah in the Quran. And Bismillah, the name Basmala, has Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim in it, and those are qualities, sifat of mercy. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being very clear with those who choose to take Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger as an enemy. This is a reaction to the action of the mushrikeen in particular, or any other group that takes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as their enemy, or takes the Muslims as their enemy. This is why it's quite clear. Bara'atu min Allahi wa rasulihi ila alladhina ahadtu min al-mushrikeen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is free from all obligations. This is a statement that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's messenger are free from all obligations to those who have made some covenants with the mushrikeen. Fasihu fil ardi arba'ata ashhur wa'lamu annakum ghayru mu'jizillah wa anna Allaha mukhzil kafirin. So now, after this statement has been made, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has now declared that all peace treaties, all mutual treaties of allegiances are now finished. You've cheated, you've deceived, you've lied, you've backstabbed, you've said one thing and you've done another. Okay, now that's enough is enough. You come all sweet with smiles and sign peace treaties and come to agreements with the Muslims. You've literally walked out of that and you have no belief in that peace treaty whatsoever. You're then attacking behind the back, you're behind people's backs, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're provoking, and then when it comes to discussing things again, you're all sweet and smiles and saying, oh, well, it wasn't us. Can't have been us, I don't know who that was. What they fail to realize is Allah SWT sees all. So Allah SWT says, right, you've now got a declaration of freedom. We are freeing ourselves from any obligations of any treaties. So, but you will also have, because this is Allah SWT nature, and this is the Prophet's nature, that you will not be, it won't be as of immediate effect. So, fasihu fil ard. So now you can go about, do your business, arba'at ashri, for 4 months. After that, when the 4 months is over, then there is no peace treaty amongst us. You are our enemy, and you can take us as your enemy. Because enough is enough. And that's what happened. وَأَذَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. And a adhan, a declaration from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger to the people on the day of Hajj al-Akbar. Hajj al-Akbar, yani it was a day of Hajj, not Umrah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger are free from the mushrikeen. So this was a declaration made. فَإِن تُبْتُمْ, if you repent from your past actions and your past digressions and your past attacks, then that's better for you. وَإِن تَوَلَّيْتُمْ فَأْلَمُوا, and if you turn away, then know that indeed أَنَّكُمْ غَيْرُ مُعْجِزِ اللَّهِ, you're not going to escape from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The earth is not big enough for you to escape from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ أَحَدتُّ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ ثُمَّ لَمْ يَنْقُصُوكُمْ شَيْئًا وَلَمْ يُظَاهِرُوا عَلَيْكُمْ أَحَدًا فَأَتِمُّوا إِلَيْهِمْ أَحْدَهُمْ إِلَى مُدَّتِهِمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَّقِينَ. So give glad tidings to those who are your enemy, who deny of a painful punishment, except those who you have a treaty with the polytheists. And ثُمَّ لَمْ يَنْقُصُوكُمْ, and then they've not failed you, they've not broken the treaty on their side, they've not backstabbed you, they've not worked behind your back, they've not tried to destroy you, they've not tried to provoke you, they've been fair. They've made the treaty with you, they signed it, and they've been fair to it. So then fine. وَلَمْ يُزَاهِرُوا عَلَيْكُمْ أَحَدًا, and neither have they supported like a proxy war. They've not supported another tribe to fight against you, and they've claimed, we've got nothing to do with this. Yet behind the scenes, they're providing them finances, behind the scenes, they're providing them weapons, and then when you go up to them and you say to them, hold on, we have a peace treaty, why are you supporting tribe A or tribe B? And then they say, well, you know what, we're not supporting tribe A, tribe B. So those people who aren't doing that and they're not doing that, فَأَتِمُّوا إِلَيْهِمْ أَحَدًا, then fulfill your treaties with them. إِلَى مُدَّتِهِمْ, forever, whatever length of time you've made your peace treaty. Why? Because إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَّقِينَ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who have taqwa. He doesn't like people who are warmongers. He doesn't like people who like to go to war. He wants people to live in peace even though they have a value system which is completely opposite and they completely disagree with each other on virtually everything. Even then, for the sake of peace, for the sake of security, for the sake of prosperity, agree terms and live your own lives. Now this is remarkable when you're speaking about this over 1400 years ago. And you have a similar way now where countries have peace treaties with each other and form alliances and form affiliations in order to become stronger. So that when the other groups are getting stronger, they're also growing by numbers. So when you're big enough, you never go to war. That's the aim, isn't it? The US and USSR, the US and Russia are highly unlikely to go to war, inshallah, I say that, because of the fact that they're so huge. And they know that if they did decide to go to war, the planet would be blown into smithereens, it would be over. But that doesn't stop the US and Russia fighting proxy wars, whether they be in Syria, whether they be in Yemen, whether they be anywhere else. And likewise, other parties and groups there like Iran and kind of like regional players of that nature, and Saudi Arabia, who want to influence the regional politics, but they're really basically, it's Russia and US at war, but playing in somebody else's pitch. This happens to be the Middle East, which is what we talked about, because there's no place now to go to war, apart from maybe if you fight over the ocean. So the best thing to do is take our toys, I'm using this in a sarcastic way, take our toys and play with somewhere where we can play, where our people don't get hurt, and somebody else's people get hurt. So, because no one really cares too much about the people in the Middle East. But here you have, even in this quite stern surah, quite to the point surah, you're talking about not losing your mind. The Prophet ﷺ and the believers could not lose their mind, even though they were being treated in this way, even though the enemies were against them and they were plotting or whatever, they still had to retain their calmness and serenity because they are accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They can't let their anger get the better of them. They can't let their behavior go out of line. Then when the time has passed, then you may go to war and attack them as you choose. وَخُذُوهُمْ, to grab them, besiege them, wait for them, and do as you like. However, فَإِن تَابُوا, if they repent. That does not mean you can go and annihilate the whole people and don't even give an opportunity to see the reality. فَإِن تَابُوا, if they repent and they establish salah and they give zakah, then let them be. It's got nothing to do with you now. Let them be. Inna Allah ghafurur rahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is forgiving. Whatever they said about me, it doesn't matter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I'm paraphrasing. Whatever they said about the Prophet, it does not matter. وَإِنَ أَحَدٌ مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ اسْتَجَارَكَ فَأَجِرْهُ حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ أَبْلِغْهُ أَمَّأْمَنَهُ. And if one of the mushrikeen comes to seek your protection, then grant him protection. Let him come into the Darul Islam, or let him come into Medina. How else is he going to find about your religion? Let him come in. حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ, until he hears the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ثُمَّ أَبْلِغُ مَأْمَنُهُ, and then let him have his security that he requested. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. That is because there are people who don't know what's in the Qur'an. They don't really know it, and we see so many converts say that I was actually interested in the Islam is because of the media. So, the people who are behind the scenes want to portray Islam as a backward religion where men are over-aggressive, and basically the religion is all about war, and hopefully today I've demonstrated quite the opposite. and the women are belittled, and they're controlled, and they have no say, and they're basically an item in that sense, not in that sense, in the other sense, and therefore, who would want to follow that religion? What for? And so many rules, that's illegal, that's haram, that's illegal, that's illegal, that's illegal, that's illegal. You got to pray all day, they exaggerate, don't they? You got to fast for months. You got to give 25% of your earnings away. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. Why would I want to follow a religion like that? So they hear all this negativity, so they think, let me find out for myself, especially the free thinkers, because it's always those people who are open-minded that Allah puts these seeds in there. They're not already kind of backward and stuck in their own ways, and they're not willing to listen to other ideas. So they read a little bit, they speak to people, and eventually they walk away and they think, what, this is what I thought Islam was, but actually Islam is nothing like that. And Allah mentions that. He says, look, give these people an opportunity so that they can hear Islam from its practitioners, from those individuals who practice it. They can see Islam, but that's the sad point, is Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his Sahaba were models of Islam. They were, as Aisha mentions, with respect to the Prophet, they were the Quran walking. Their characters, their behaviors, their I've not got enough time because I've just glanced and I've got just under 15 minutes or something, and for me to describe the nature of these individuals, I don't have the time. I probably don't have the words. So yes, they would look and they would see Islam manifest on the lives of these men, who would be courageous as lions on the battlefield, but then they'd be soft as lambs with their wives and their children. Where there was order in the community, there was no stealing, there was no lewd relationships between people, there was no highway robbery. A woman could walk freely without being attacked or whistled at or anything else like that. Supposedly our community is now moved on, and we're supposed to be modern or postmodern now, and we're supposed to be very civilized, whatever. When you ask a lady to walk past a building site, and first she'll get ogled at, and then secondly she'll get wolf whistled at, and then worse still, there'll even be people walking up to her and speaking to her about things which she's not very comfortable to speak to complete strangers about. And that's us becoming so developed. But there was this community where that never happened. Women were never treated like that, like they were sort of something to stare at and to sort of drag and whatever. So they were capable of manifesting Islam and they were the means which people were drawn to Islam. The Sahaba, radiallahu anhu ajma'in, they were the means that were drawn to, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not travel much. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, particularly when he came back to Medina, and when his mission was over, when Fatih Makkah took place, Rasulullah did not live that much longer after that. And then the main work, the bulk of the work that was carrying on in terms of propagation, was the Sahaba, ensuring that the religion was kept alive. Because arguably, with the passing of the Prophet ﷺ, it could have imploded. It could have been that. Obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had his plans. I'm not referring to it from a divine perspective or from the truth perspective. I'm speaking from a worldly perspective, that when a charismatic leader like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, such a unique man, such a unique individual who had all these skills and abilities, and he's suddenly no longer there, of course that's going to have a profound effect. We see the absence of a good leader, and Rasulullah ﷺ was the epitome of the word good leader. He was a unique leader. So they could watch, and when they saw this lifestyle of peace and calmness and serenity in Medina, they said, wait a minute, why wouldn't anybody want this? You would be insane to not want this, so they would quickly accept Islam, and then once they've accepted Islam, they would go to see their people and say, look, the way we live, we sort of answer the call of nature in the manner we do, and we don't bathe for like 6 weeks, and we don't cut our nails, and we swear at each other, and we sort of drag our women by their hair, and we do. I've just gone to see a people, and this is unique what they do, and this is remarkable, and their life is so serene and calm and peaceful, and he used to share, or she used to share these ideas with their people, and the people would listen and think, yeah, why can't we live that life? You can. You've got to believe in Allah, you've got to believe in His messenger, you've got to pray 5 times a day, you've got to fast, you've got to give zakat, and then they started to see the Sharia, and this spread like wildfire, absolute wildfire. So this verse particularly talks about this position, and a very aggressive position, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is adopting and telling his Prophet to adopt against those individuals who had really brought the Prophet to such an annoyance. An annoyance is a very much understatement. They were physically in his face, they were attacking him, they wouldn't give up, they wouldn't let rest until they thought, you know what, we have to annihilate this Prophet. And once we annihilate and kill this Prophet, which is the way they look at it, which is what we should have done before he actually made it out of Makkah, we wouldn't be facing what we're facing today. Here's another battle. لَقَدْ نَصْرَكُمُ اللَّهُ فِي مَوَاطِنَ كَثِيرًا. Indeed, Allah has helped you in many battlefields. وَيَوْمَ حُنَيْنٍ, and also on the day of Hunayn, which is now in the 9th year Hijri. When they were returning back from Fatih Makkah, إِذْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ كَثْرَتُكُمْ, when you felt quite rejoiced and comfortable and confident because you had a large number of soldiers. فَلَمْ تُغْنِ عَنْكُمْ شَيْئًا, but that didn't avail you in any way, because again, numbers it's got nothing to do with it. Why? What happened? وَضَاقَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْأَرْض, the earth became very constricted upon you. بِمَا رَحُبَتْ, even though it's wide and spacious. ثُمَّ وَلَّيْتُمْ مُدْبِرِينَ, and then you turn on your backs. But Allah did not abandon you. ثُمَّ أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ سَكِينَتَهُ, then Allah descended his sakina upon your hearts. He gave you confidence, he gave you comfort. He reconciled ala rasuli, upon your messenger and upon the believers. وَأَنزَلَ جُنُودًا, and he sent armies, لَمْ تَرَوْهَا, you could not see them. وَعَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and he punished those who did kufr. وَذَلِكَ جَزَاءُ الْكَافِرِينَ. ثُمَّ يَتُوبُ اللَّهُ مِنْ بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ عَلَى مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. So you can see again that the battle is not won by numbers, the battle is not won by techniques, the battle is not won by strategies, the battle is not won by weapons, the battle is won when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees it to be won. And the belief that the Muslims must have is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not in number, not in weapons, not in techniques, not in strategies. That's where the belief should be. And with that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant success. قاتلوا الذين لا يؤمنون بالله ولا باليوم الآخر ولا يحرمون ما حرم الله ورسوله ولا يدينون دين الحق من الذين أوتوا الكتاب حتى يؤتوا الجزية عن يد وهم صاغرون. So again, you're seeing it many times that this battle, clearly Allah is sending a very firm message out that nothing will be tolerated, that you have been given enough time now with your misdemeanors and your misbehaviors and the way you've been carrying on, and you haven't taken heed, you haven't taken lesson. Well, now there's only one lesson left to teach you, and that was the manner in which it was taught, in a very strict way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks. And obviously, as I lean forward, I'm realizing that I have 5-6 minutes left, and I'm losing time. But I can't miss this ayat out. This here we talk about when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made hijrah with Sayyidina Abu Bakr, who for a short time they hid in a cave, and the mushrikeen were out looking for them. So when they came, إلا تنصروه فقد نصر الله إذ أخرجه الذين كفروا ثاني اثنين إذ هما في غار إذ يقول لصاحبه لا تحزن إن الله معنا. And this is when the mushrikeen had come, and this cave was one of those caves which went in first. It went down. So the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr are down here, and they stood here. The mushrikeen, and they're sort of looking inside. And obviously when you've just been out where the sun is bright and you're now looking into a dark place, it takes a while for your pupils to adjust to the different amount of light, and they're looking and they can't see anybody. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr is thinking, Ya Allah, they're right there. If there was someone who was to just look down at his feet, he's going to see us. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, La tahzan, don't grieve, indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. So that's a great status. Some people want to see flaw in that or saying that Abu Bakr was scared. Any person would be scared, but I think you're missing the point. The point here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with Sayyidina Abu Bakr. That's what Rasulullah says. La tahzan inna Allah ma'ana. Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be with somebody who he's not pleased with? Of course he's pleased with all the Sahaba, and Sayyidina Abu Bakr is of the highest ranking Sahaba. So clearly that's all nonsense. This is just people looking for trouble and looking for things which aren't there. So again, many more verses about what battle and how they engage, and sending a threat and a warning to the mushrikeen, to frighten them, to say to them that, look, you've just gone too far now, and now the only way out for you is now to face battle, and you'll have to deal with that. So this seems the main, the absolute thread, you could say, in this particular discussion. And this sent a very strong message to the mushrikeen, and Surah Tawbah then carries on into the 11th para before we reach to Surah Yunus. But as is practice, and I'm aware that we've got few minutes to go, I will just recite the last sort of few lines. ليس على الضعفاء ولا على المرضى ولا على الذين لا يجدون ما ينفقون حرج إذا نصحوا لله ورسوله. There's no sin or of any sorts upon the weak, nor upon the ill, nor upon those who don't have anything to spend. They can't buy a horse, they don't have a horse, they don't have no armor. Any haraj. إذا نصحوا, if they're sincere for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. Sincerity is key, because the war is not fought by numbers, the war is won or lost by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will. We've learned that, or should have learned that. It's His will which determines that. We don't become successful because of we're clever or opportunity or whatever. It's because Allah Ta'ala wills it. If He doesn't will it, it doesn't matter. Whatever we did, it's not going to happen. ما على المحسنين من سبيل والله غفور رحيم ولا على الذين إذا ما أتوك لتحملهم قلت لا أجد ما أحملكم عليه. Neither upon those who come to you and they say, please give us an animal, give us something so we can go out and fight along your side, and you say to them, look, I'm sorry, I can't help you, I don't have anything to give you. تولوا, they turn. وأعينهم تفيض من الدم, and you see tears rolling down their eyes. The sincerity there, they wanted to go into battle. So he's talking now about those who stayed behind. Some who stayed behind, we missed that part, I'm sorry to say, who stayed behind out of falsehood, cheating, munafiqeen, didn't really want to go, wanted to send a message that, oh, we're not going to be with you, wanted to frighten the believers that, oh, look, you're going to be on your own, you're going to lose, play these psychological games. So some had those, but there were others who were genuine people, the weak, the ill, those who had nothing to spend, and also here, those who came and they were ready, they were fully, they were capable, they could go to battle, but sadly they had nothing, and they were genuine, because when they would turn away, they wouldn't lie and pretend in front of the Prophet, saying, oh no, I would love to go battle, I can't go, oh no, this is really bad, okay, I'm going to go home now and cry and whatever. They would turn away from the Prophet, and then they would cry. So not to sort of show the Prophet that, have pity on us, trying to prove the case even further, try to upset the Prophet, so they turn, and then وَأَعْيُنُهُمْ تَفِيضُ مِنَ الدَّمِ حَزَنًا, grieving أَلَّا يَجِدُوا مَا يُنْفِقُونَ, that they can't find anything to spend. إنما السبيل على الذين يستأذنونك وهم أغنياء. However, the grounds for complaint, the grounds for taking to task are those individuals who come to you asking for permission. Oh, I can't go. Oh, this has happened. My family's ill. This is that. And we know this story. Whenever you ask somebody for some dini work, and then they say, oh, guess what? Oh my goodness, is that time? Oh my goodness, what was that? Oh my goodness, is that the time? And they don't have a watch on. Oh, I need to be at my mum's house. That's it, my mum's house, because she's got a plumber coming. That's the word, plumber. So I can't go. I'd love to go spend some time in the masjid. I'd love to go, on this particular project with you, whatever. But I can't go. I'm really, really sorry. Or when it comes to money, here, just give £3 each, everybody. £3 each. Oh man, I forgot my wallet. Chink, chink, chink. What's that noise in your pocket? Okay, that's money. Yes, I totally forgot about that money. That money is for the shopping. That's right, shopping, which I need to buy on the way home. Goodness me. Oh, that's all right. You can, buy that tomorrow. Oh yes, good point. But shopping, we need it tonight. Yes, we need it tonight. If we don't have it tonight, we will starve. There's nothing in the house, nothing. And this person is lying, and who are they trying to deceive? They're not deceiving anybody. They're not deceiving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're not deceiving these brothers who are trying to ask him to help out on this project. All they're doing is deceiving themselves from taking a share of the ajr. Nobody else. So, إنما السبيل على الذين يستأذنونك وهم أغنياء رضوا, they are happy بأن يكونوا مع الخوالف, that they stay behind with those who stayed behind. Yani those who stayed behind were the weak, the women stayed behind, the children stayed behind, the weak stayed behind, the ill stayed behind, those people who had no money stayed behind. There were these types of people who stayed behind. They want to be with them. Okay, وَتَبَ اللَّهُ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ, and Allah SWT then seals their hearts, فَهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ, and they do not know. And again, going back to our kind of our sort of a scenario that I gave you, then likewise this person doesn't get that opportunity again, doesn't get that opportunity to give, doesn't get that opportunity to partake in that project, doesn't get that opportunity to be in the masjid, and this, because of this self-denial, putting themselves in this situation, they are left with no choice. And that brings us to the end of our 10th para. And next we move on to يَعْتَذِرُونَ إِلَيْكُمْ إِذَا رَجَعْتُمْ إِلَيْهِمْ, that when they come back to you, then they put forward their excuses, or rather when you return, they put forward excuses, those who did not go. I say, oh, I did not go because of this, I did not go. So the conversation will carry on, because Surah Tawbah carries on until we reach Surah Yunus, where we will start to, I guess, speak about the Prophet Yunus alayhi salatu wasalam. So I hope you can join me again for Ramadan Recital Reminders number 11 of our Ramadan series of Syncing with the Quran. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
ليلة القدر التي نزلت بها آيات تذكرة لذي الألباب، يا صائما للشهر محتسبا له، بشراك مغفرة بغير حساب، بشراك مغفرة بغير حساب.